What's up, guys? It's me, Jamar Dawson from the Off My Chest Show. So happy to be back with y'all again. I know it's been a little while since we've had a show, but we're back at it. We're going to have some really cool interviews and other things starting this month. It's the first day of August, and we got some really incredible things. Hopefully, we'll have at least 2 interviews with special guests this month. But this show's episode, I want to go ahead and dive into it. It shouldn't be an extremely long episode today, but I think that we're going to be covering a topic that almost every person on the planet with a cell phone or access to the internet has heard of, and that is Simone Biles pulling out of multiple events in the 2020 Olympics. So for those who have been living under a rock or don't have a smart device of their own or just don't hear about news, the 2020 Olympics are going on right now. We're about halfway through the Olympics. I think we just finished the swimming events last night. For the most part, I think they're all finished. And then we're just about to really get into the midpoint of all the track and field stuff that just kicked off. A couple of medals were already given, but they're really getting to the middle of that track and field schedule now. So we're about halfway through the Olympics. Exciting times for those who are folks who are fans of the Olympics. I love watching it every time it comes out, every 4 years, I guess in this case every 5. Hopefully we'll get back on track in 3 years from now. But anyways, so yeah, that's going on right now. Big fanfare. It's in Tokyo, even though we're still in the middle of the pandemic. The big news, though, that occurred last week, earlier part of last week, Simone Biles pulled out of the women's team competition, and people had a lot to say about it. There were some people that came out and criticized her actions, calling her a coward, calling her mentally weak, saying that she's what's wrong with this country. She's part of that liberal mentality and ideology that says everybody should get a trophy, and if you're not doing well, you just quit. People have said that she's un-American. Some people called her an embarrassment. All sorts of things from the critical side. Now, there was also some people out there who came out and defended her actions, saying that she was brave and that she's a champion of mental health, and she showed everybody that you need to take a break sometimes, and you must, man, she just must have had an injury. She's so great. She just must have an injury, and you know, we're trying to connect this to this earlier competition and this and that. Overall, what it comes down to is an issue that I have is that folks on both sides, even those with good intentions that weren't trying to be critical of her, expanded on what she said. Now, some people were just like, it doesn't matter that much, it doesn't affect me. You know, if that's what she thinks, that's what she needs to do, cool. I don't have any problem with those folks. It's the folks on the extreme sides that took a very strong stance and expanded on, in most cases, what she actually said. In the press conference after that team competition concluded, she said, there's no physical injury. She withdrew, she said, because the pressure had become too much. She says, I was just like shaking, could barely nap. I just never felt like this going into a competition before, end quote. So here, she indicates that there was some sort of issue relating to the pressure that she was facing going on. And, you know, what she's describing sounds a whole lot like anxiety. We're going to go in her Instagram in a second. Let me go ahead and switch this view so you could see that there. But yeah, so what she's describing sounds a lot like anxiety. I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but I've been around folks who have had anxiety or a panic attack. And she doesn't go so far as to use those words. She doesn't call it anxiety or a panic attack, but it seems based off of her statement here, very limited statement, that this is similar to those symptoms. Let's take a look at her Instagram post that she posted right after the prelims were over, about to start the finals. Now, me and my wife, we watched the warm-ups a little bit of the women's gymnastics team warming up. They didn't look that great. They looked a little sloppy. Simone didn't look great. Some of the other gymnasts didn't look great. But I've just chopped that up to, okay, they're doing warm-ups and walkthroughs. When I was a college athletic competitor, I was a triple jumper for my freshman year, and when I was warming up, I never went full bore. I was just kind of running to make sure I could hit that board, make sure my steps were down. I maybe did a little hop, but I wasn't kind of grow really hard in that warm-up state. So I was like, they're just warming up. And even the prelims, when they weren't doing that great, and Simone had some extra steps on the end of some of her things and jumps and all that. You could tell I'm not like a aficionado when it comes to gymnastics, but she added some extra steps and she didn't get maximum points. I was like, oh, well, this is just the prelims. Nobody does great in the prelims. But this is what she wrote. She said, it wasn't an easy day or my best, but I got through it. I truly do feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders at times. I know I brush it off and make it seem like pressure doesn't affect me, but D, sometimes it's hard, ha ha ha. The Olympics is no joke, but I'm happy my family was able to be with me virtually. They mean the world to me. So that's about 5 or 6 sentences that she says in her statement right there. I feel like she was even more vague in this statement than she was in the statement that she had at the press conference, right? And a lot of people took what she said, the few sound bites that she had at the press conference, and extracted a little bit of what they could from her Instagram statement to form their opinion and comment off of. I probably would have framed it a little bit differently, especially at the press conference. We have more than 160 characters or whatever it is these days, but it is what it is. But here's the root of what I wanted to get off my chest for today. When there's an event, whether it's sports, whether it's the Olympics, whether it's shooting involving the police, someone getting canned at their job, whatever it may be, it's never good. It's never good to take a firm stance before enough information comes out before you can make an objective statement. That's one of the negative things about social media. You know, everybody, for the most part, has access to a phone or to a computer or whatever. And within a few taps on the screen, you have the world as your audience, right? And, you know, you could literally be reporting on something live as whether you're a reporter or just a normal person like you and me. At the blink of an eye, you could be reporting on something live. And if you don't have the right perspective and vantage point, you can miss the full story. You can miss the full picture. You can miss what's really going on. Since this tweet came out and since the Instagram stuff, the Instagram comment came out, and since the press conference, more information has kind of slowly trickled out, but not before people dug in, like I mentioned before, on Twitter, Facebook, and podcasts, of what their interpretation of what going on really was. You know, in the middle of the workday, I was on Facebook, checking my Facebook real quick because I had made a post. I wanted to see if anybody had any funny comments to it. But I was checking just on my homepage on Facebook, and in the middle of the day, grown men and women making much more than I, have much higher responsibilities than me, were going back and forth making comments about Simone and her mental health, and man, she's a black woman and so much stuff is on her, and oh my gosh, the judges, they increased this and they made it so it's harder for her because of her moves nobody else can do, and that's why she has all this. And I was like, man, these people are very passionate and they're going beyond what she said in her statements. I just thought that was very interesting. So I think, I don't want to be unclear about what I'm trying to say here. I'm really big on liberty. I'm really big on freedom and having an opinion. I don't want anybody to get it twisted. Freedom is actually one of the key components of this show. I'm about family, faith, freedom, and future. Freedom is just personal liberty and responsibility. And so I'm all for people being able to say what they want to say without real fear of repercussion. However, if you're in such a rush to comment about something without getting all the information, you're likely going to have to pay a price for that. Using shootings involving police as an example, over the last couple of years, there's been a couple of incidents and there's been a lot of media attention and coverage. I could have a whole show, I could have a whole series based off of that. But what I wanted to mention was, in some cases, if there was a shooting, say the police shot a black man or a Hispanic person, you got the Al Sharptons of the world kind of descend out there, and then you have all these activists calling for this and that and making demands. And then a couple weeks later, information comes out and it's like, oh, this was actually no fault of the police. This person had a weapon. They were firing on the police, and the police told them to stop, and the police lives in jeopardy, and there was other people around, and so the police actually made the right decision. In those cases, people just look bad, and there's a void between the two parties that typically doesn't get mended. In those events, it's best just to wait, hold your tongue, and do the investigative work and wait for the investigation and information to come out before having a tough, stern, staunch stance on something. So I really do wish Simone well. This is a certainly unfortunate situation for her. I hope that she can move on and move forward. People need to understand that before she pulled out of these last couple of events in the 2020 Olympics, she probably considered the cost. She probably sat down with her publicist or her manager or whatever. She's getting hundreds of thousands in sponsorships. I was just at the grocery store a couple of hours ago, and I saw this advertisement placard from like Nabisco or something, and her face was on it. You probably have seen, you go and turn your TV on, you couldn't, at least before the Olympics, you could not go an hour without seeing a commercial with Simone if you're watching network television. Of course, if you're streaming, then you probably weren't seeing commercials, although some of these streaming networks have incorporated commercials. That's what we just thought we were getting away from with streaming, but that is not for today's episode. But she was everywhere, right? She has all these endorsements, most likely, like a lot of athletes on the American side, because you only get about $36,000 for a gold medal. It's not like you're living and setting up a legacy by winning gold medals in the United States. Now, if you're in the Philippines or some other countries where they give you big time money for it, that's different. But she had these endorsements, like I said, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Likely, she had certain things in her contract for if she won a gold medal, then she would have gotten a financial incentive, most likely. We have coaches in the United States, in college football, in the national level, the NFL level, the players. If you get to a certain level, you get to a certain bowl game, a certain playoff game, and you win that or this or that or that, then you get a bonus. Most likely those were in place. So all these types of implications was there for her. So financial bonuses, these were all part of most likely her decision making if she had to consider in order for her to make the call to back out or not. So it's not like she made this on a whim. And at 24, this is likely her last hurrah as an Olympian. She's, as she mentioned a week or so ago, she's kind of like the grandma of the team. The average age of an Olympian who is in gymnastics is much younger than 24 years old. So for those who were saying that she was quitting on the whim, it really doesn't make sense in light of what she stands to lose here. We're talking about someone who hasn't lost an all-around competition in about 8 years. So I think we can give her the benefit of doubt that whatever she's experiencing is beyond what ordinary stress is. I think that she's felt extraordinary stress when she was a 19-year-old in the 2016 Rio Olympics. She was considered one of the greatest of all time. That was her first Olympics, and she went on to win 4 gold medals. Not to mention, it was a packed arena. When she pulled out a couple of days ago, there was nobody there, right? Because of the pandemic, and the Tokyo officials said no spectators, right? So she even had less normal stress, quote unquote, than she normally would have. So we should be able to give a person, when they make a statement like this, the benefit of the doubt. There's probably something else going on here. And if a person who was about to get on Twitter or Instagram and make some comments, if they just would have thought, well, her brother was just picked up on triple homicide, and his trial was 3 weeks ago, and all these other things going on. If they would have thought about the sum, it may not have been exactly the summation of what was causing the pressure, but you could have logically come to a conclusion that, okay, there's something beyond the scenes. Let me just hold off before I make a comment. Now, anxiety is one of those things that really can't be controlled. And I'm almost done here today, but it's really one of those things that can't be controlled. Like I said before, I've seen firsthand some folks who have dealt with anxiety and having a panic attack. I'm not going to name names or whatever, but I was there near a person several years ago when I was in college who had a panic attack over period of like a couple of weeks before they went to the doctor to see what was going on. And it wasn't a joke. I'm not a person who coddles people. I'm one of those folks who wants to be careful when I raise my kids that, hey, we're just not going to give you a medal for showing up. We want you to really compete in victory and in defeat. We want you to be gracious, But at the same time, I recognize something like anxiety. It can pop up out of nowhere. There's this boxer. This happened in 1997, named Oliver McCall. That's him right here up in the upper right corner right here. He was fighting Lennox Lewis for the title, the heavyweight title. And in the middle of the fight, starting around the fourth round, the dude just had a mental breakdown, right? This dude had fought. He had already been the champion. Okay, he had knocked out Lennox Lewis, right? And the first time they fought, this was their second match. And all of a sudden, he just starts crying. He starts walking around shaking. Lennox Lewis is dropping bombs and he just walking away, just shaking his head. And the ref keeps asking, do you want to fight? Do you want to fight? And finally, in the middle of the fifth round, the ref said, I've had enough. And he called the fight. So that just kind of happened without warning, right? And so it's one of those things where I think people just need to be conscious that before we make a judgment call, whether we're defending the person or criticizing, I think that we need to just hold off and get all the information, especially when it comes to mental issues. I think over the last 10, 15 years, some things might have been a little overblown, but some things are still kind of under the radar where we need to get a comprehensive understanding of what someone's mental state is. That's why I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. But at the same time, we need to make sure that a person's mental state is at a certain level before they can own a gun responsibly. I'm about responsibility. If you could be responsible, I don't care if you have a cannon, but if you could own it and operate it safely and responsibly, then I think you should be able to have at it. Now, that's another discussion, but just kind of comes down to it. So in closing, we've had a lot to say. We've seen a whole lot of things over this last week or so. At the end of the day, I think it's possible that some people, I hope, have learned that if we make an eager statement immediately following an event, it could be disastrous for us and make us look like fools. Some people have apologized and tried to make amends, like the Texas state official who called Simone a national embarrassment, and he backtracked and apologized. But more often than not, for the sake of saving face, people just typically dig their heels in on their initial comments, and the void between us continues to grow. So I just wanted to speak on that. Let us be mindful before we say this is right and this is right and have a staunch opinion of things right as an event happens or right after an event. Let's just hold on. Let's wait before we start handing out judgment and persecution and criticism or support and expanding on what people have said. Let's just wait, get more information. Let's be patient and support our fellow humans as they go through the things that they're doing. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I just wanted to get that off my chest. Whether it was people giving support to her, they were putting words in her mouth and be like, well, she's the greatest. She must have had an injury. I mean, let's look at this event that happened in May. That's what they're talking about. It's like, no. Later on, she says it wasn't an injury. Okay? Just wait. Or if on the other end, the far end of the spectrum, people criticize them, just wait. Let's support her. She's a Team USA member. She's been a fine champion. She has 25 world medals. 19 of them are gold. I think that we should just wait, give her the benefit of the doubt. Let's give our fellow humans the benefit of the doubt. Wait for more information to come out in any incident so that we don't look foolish. So before I leave y'all today, I want to give y'all a brief encouragement. This comes from 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. It says, "For whoever would love life and see good days must keep their tongue from evil and their lips from deceitful speech." I think that's just a good reminder that, there's life and death in the tongue. There's a lot of power in the tongue. From what a Christian believes, according to what the Bible says, that the world was created through the word of God, right? It was spoken into existence. We have a lot of power with our mouths. And even if you talk about digitally, with our Twitter fingers, right? And so we need to wait before we say something and ask, is it honorable? Is it good? Is it lifting others up? Is it truthful? And then post what we're going to post. Then say what we're going to say. If it does not meet the criteria, maybe we should delete what we're about to post, delete what we're about to say, because it could come back to bite us. We could pay the price for it, and it could cause people to be torn farther apart. So that's all I have for y'all today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you have a blessed week. Be sure to tune in real soon because we have some really amazing interviews with some really amazing people on the horizon. Talk to you soon. Peace.